One leap of faith, one moment of trust in equipment and physics. That's all it took to turn the ultimate thrill into the 6 horrifying bungee jumping deaths ever. These aren't simple accidents. They're reminders that when you're plummeting toward Earth, there's no margin for error. It was March 15, 2016, when 28-year-old Colleen Baxter made what would become the final decision of her life. The ambitious marketing executive from San Francisco had always been the type to chase experiences that others only dreamed about. Her colleagues knew her as the woman who would book weekend trips to Patagonia between client presentations, turning every vacation into an adventure story worth telling. Colleen had spent months planning this Colorado getaway, specifically choosing the Rocky Mountain Bridge bungee for its stellar reputation. The operation boasted 12 years without a single serious incident, over 50,000 successful jumps and certifications from every relevant safety organization. For someone as meticulous as Colleen, these credentials mattered. She wasn't reckless, she was calculated in her pursuit of adrenaline. What Colleen couldn't have known was that the specific carabiner selected for her jump contained a microscopic manufacturing defect. The flaw had originated during the forging process months earlier, a tiny inclusion of impure metal that created a weak point invisible to standard inspection methods. The defect was so rare that it occurred in less than 1 in 50,000 units, passing all quality control tests and safety certifications. That morning proceeded like any other. Safety inspectors conducted their routine equipment checks, examining each component according to established protocols. The defective carabiner appeared identical to thousands of others, showing no visible signs of weakness. Even under magnification, the internal flaw remained undetectable with standard inspection equipment. Colleen arrived mid-morning, excitement barely contained as she signed waivers and listened to the safety briefing. Certified operators fitted her with the standard ankle harness system, double-checking every connection point. The 165-foot elastic cord was attached using the carabiner that would soon reveal its hidden weakness. Shortly before noon, Colleen stepped to the edge of the 240-foot bridge, her heart hammering with anticipation. She had dreamed of this moment for months, imagining the rush of free fall, the triumphant rebound, the story she would tell for years. The jump master gave his final countdown, and Colleen launched herself into the Colorado sky with perfect form. During the initial phase of her fall, everything proceeded exactly as designed. Colleen experienced pure euphoria of free fall, her body accelerating toward the Rocky Canyon floor. But as the elastic cord reached maximum extension, and the full dynamic load transferred to the attachment point, the microscopic flaw in the carabiner finally propagated into a complete fracture. The failure was instantaneous. The carabiner separated along the defective grain line, releasing the cord from Colleen's harness. What should have been the moment of triumphant rebound became a continuation of free fall, sending Colleen into the boulder-strewn canyon below. Emergency responders reached the scene within minutes, but the impact had been unsurvivable. The investigation that followed involved metallurgical analysis of the failed carabiner, revealing the manufacturing defect that had remained hidden until that fatal moment. The manufacturer voluntarily recalled the entire production batch and enhanced their quality control procedures. The bungee operation was cleared of any wrongdoing, as all safety protocols had been properly followed. However, the incident highlighted the limitations of visual inspection methods for detecting internal material defects. Colleen's death contributed to the development of more sophisticated non-destructive testing methods for critical safety hardware. Her story became a sobering reminder that even with the most rigorous safety protocols, manufacturing defects can create unforeseeable risks in extreme sports equipment. It was August 7, 2017, when 34-year-old Hunter Malloy's overconfidence would prove fatal. The former Navy SEAL turned freelance adventure photographer had spent years documenting extreme sports, building a social media following through increasingly dangerous stunts. His military background had given him technical skills, but civilian life had dulled his risk assessment judgment. Hunter's colleagues knew him as someone who chased the perfect shot regardless of safety protocols. He had a reputation for dismissing standard precautions, believing his experience made him invulnerable. This attitude had already cost him several professional contracts when clients deemed him too reckless. That summer, Hunter was traveling through South America on his own dime, seeking content for his struggling photography business. He discovered a small bungee operation run by former rock climbing guides who had converted an old railway bridge into a jumping platform using repurposed climbing equipment. The setup appeared legitimate at first glance. The operators had genuine climbing experience and used recognizable gear brands. However, they lacked formal bungee training and had adapted rock climbing techniques for a completely different application. Their weight calculations were based on static climbing loads rather than dynamic bungee forces. Hunter's photographer instincts were excited by the authentic, non-commercial atmosphere. The bridge offered spectacular canyon views that would create stunning footage. More importantly, the operators were willing to let him jump with multiple cameras attached, something commercial operations typically prohibited. The guides estimated Hunter's cord length, using methods that worked for their lighter local clientele. They failed to account for Hunter's muscular 210-pound frame and the additional weight of his camera equipment. The climbing rope they used as bungee cord lacked the elasticity needed for safe energy absorption. When Hunter stepped to the bridge edge that afternoon, he was secured with a harness system designed for rock climbing, not bungee jumping. The static climbing rope was attached using techniques appropriate for rappelling, but inadequate for the shock loads of bungee jumping. The jump began normally, with Hunter experiencing the familiar rush of free fall. However, as the climbing rope reached its limited stretch capacity, it failed to provide the gradual deceleration of a proper bungee cord. Instead, Hunter experienced a violent, jarring stop that his body wasn't prepared for. The sudden deceleration caused severe spinal compression, as Hunter's momentum was arrested too abruptly. The climbing rope, designed for static loads, began to stretch beyond its elastic limit under the dynamic forces. This created an uncontrolled rebound that sent Hunter swinging toward the bridge structure. Hunter struck the concrete bridge support with devastating force, suffering massive head trauma and spinal injuries. The improvised system continued to malfunction, creating additional impacts as the overstressed rope failed to provide stable suspension. The guides, lacking emergency medical training, could only provide basic first aid. The remote location meant professional medical response took over an hour to arrive. Hunter succumbed to his injuries before reaching proper medical facilities. Investigation revealed that the operators had been using rock climbing techniques inappropriately for bungee jumping. The climbing rope's properties were fundamentally unsuited for the application, and the guides lacked understanding of the different force dynamics involved. Hunter's tragic death underscored the risks posed by inexperienced operators who modify equipment for uses outside its intended specifications. His story serves as a warning about the critical need for adequate training and appropriate gear selection in high-risk sporting activities. It was June 22, 2015, when 22-year-old Sierra Whitcomb decided to conquer her deepest fear before starting medical school. The recent college graduate had just been accepted to Johns Hopkins and wanted to prove she could overcome anything. Sierra was known as the quiet, studious type who planned everything meticulously, but harbored a secret terror of heights since childhood. Her acceptance letter had arrived 3 weeks earlier, and Sierra knew the next 4 years would demand everything she had. She'd read about exposure therapy and convinced herself that facing her acrophobia would build the mental resilience she'd need as a future physician. Sierra had researched extensively before choosing the Kawarau Gorge operation, drawn by its reputation as the birthplace of commercial bungee jumping. The company's safety record was impeccable, with decades of successful operations and international certifications. What Sierra couldn't have known was that she had an undiagnosed heart condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The genetic disorder caused abnormal thickening of her heart muscle, making her susceptible to sudden cardiac events during extreme stress. The condition often goes undetected in young, otherwise healthy individuals. Sierra's family had no known history of heart problems, and she had never experienced symptoms that would suggest cardiac issues. Her regular college health checkups had been normal, as the condition doesn't always show up without specific cardiac screening. Sierra arrived feeling a mixture of terror and determination. She'd barely slept the night before, alternating between excitement about medical school and panic about the jump. The extreme anxiety was already placing significant stress on her cardiovascular system. The safety briefing proceeded according to standard protocols, Sierra was fitted with a full-body harness system designed for the 141-foot drop into the Kawarau River. The equipment was industry standard, recently inspected and operated by certified professionals. As Sierra approached the platform edge, her heart was pounding violently. The combination of her lifelong phobia and the immediate prospect of jumping created an overwhelming surge of adrenaline and stress hormones. Her body was experiencing fight-or-flight response at maximum intensity. Sierra leaped from the historic bridge, and for the first few seconds, everything proceeded normally. The initial rush of free fall was exactly what she had imagined, terrifying but exhilarating. However, the extreme physiological stress triggered a massive cardiac arrhythmia. Her heart began beating irregularly, and then stopped effectively pumping blood. Sierra lost consciousness during the free fall phase, her body going completely limp as cardiac arrest set in. The bungee equipment functioned perfectly, but Sierra was already clinically dead. The bungee cord stretched and rebounded as designed, but Sierra's unconscious body swung in an uncontrolled manner. She struck the canyon wall during the pendulum motion, but the cardiac arrest had already been fatal. Emergency responders were on scene within minutes and attempted resuscitation, but Sierra had suffered massive cardiac arrest that proved irreversible. The automated external defibrillator showed no shockable rhythm, indicating complete cardiac failure. The autopsy revealed the previously undiagnosed hypertrophic cardiomyopathy that had made Sierra vulnerable to sudden cardiac death during extreme stress. The bungee operation was completely cleared of any wrongdoing. The tragic incident prompted calls for better health checks before people participate in extreme sports. This case showed that medical conditions can be just as deadly as external dangers, making it clear that participants need proper medical clearance before taking on these activities. It was November 14th, 2018, when 29-year-old Damon Carlisle's relentless pursuit of the perfect shot would lead him into a geological nightmare. The Hollywood stuntman had built his reputation on fearlessness, performing death-defying sequences that made A-list actors look heroic. His colleagues knew him as the guy who never used a double and never met a risk he wouldn't calculate and conquer. Damon's latest project had brought him to California's Central Valley, documenting extreme sports locations for an upcoming action film. The production company needed authentic footage of real bungee jumping sites. As the film's stunt coordinator, Damon insisted on experiencing each location personally. The bridge-based operation he'd chosen was a veteran in the industry, boasting 15 years of flawless safety records. The converted railway bridge had been specifically engineered for bungee jumping, with reinforced anchor points and state-of-the-art equipment. What made this particular morning different was the geological instability building beneath the Central Valley. The region sits atop multiple fault lines, and seismic pressure had been accumulating for months without producing detectable tremors. The monitoring equipment was designed to detect traditional earthquake patterns, but the developing situation was more subtle. Damon arrived with his usual confidence, reviewing safety procedures with professional attention that had kept him alive through hundreds of dangerous stunts. The equipment inspection revealed nothing unusual. Industry-standard harnesses, recently certified bungee cords, and anchor points stress-tested weeks earlier. The morning seismic readings showed completely normal conditions. California's earthquake monitoring network detected no unusual activity, and local geological surveys indicated stable ground conditions. As Damon prepared for his jump, he went through the same mental checklist that had served him well in countless film stunts. Every piece of equipment was exactly where it should be. Every safety protocol had been followed, and every environmental factor appeared optimal. Damon stepped to the platform edge with calm confidence. He launched himself from the bridge with textbook form, beginning what should have been a routine documentation jump. The initial freefall proceeded exactly as expected. Damon experienced the familiar sensation of controlled descent, his body accelerating toward the valley floor. The bungee cord began its calculated extension, absorbing his kinetic energy according to precise engineering specifications. Then the earth moved. A magnitude 4.2 earthquake struck without warning, its epicenter located just 12 miles from the bridge. The seismic waves reached the structure as Damon's bungee cord approached maximum extension. The ground motion was minor by California standards, But the near-perfect timing created a catastrophic coincidence. The tremor caused the bridge to sway slightly, only a few inches laterally. But because Damon was at the peak of his rebound, the small motion was enough to alter his trajectory. Instead of rebounding safely away from the structure, Damon was pulled dangerously close to the bridge's concrete support pillars. The impact occurred at tremendous velocity, with Damon's body striking the reinforced concrete at tremendous speed. The collision caused massive trauma that proved instantly fatal, despite the bungee equipment functioning exactly as designed. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but the combination of seismic timing and physics had created an unsurvivable scenario. The investigation confirmed that the earthquake had been completely unpredictable. This fatality prompted the implementation of real-time seismic monitoring systems at extreme sports venues across California. The event served as a stark warning that unpredictable natural forces can overcome even the most seasoned professionals. It was September 3, 2016. 26-year-old Tessa Raymond had always believed that preparation was everything. The meticulous Australian travel blogger approached every adventure with obsessive attention to detail that had transformed her Instagram account into a six-figure business. Her followers trusted her recommendations because Tessa never took shortcuts. She researched equipment manufacturers and documented every precaution. This Swiss alpine resort represented the pinnacle of luxury adventure tourism. Tessa had spent weeks vetting the facility, impressed by their celebrity clientele and military-grade equipment sourcing. The resort's bungee cords came from manufacturers that supplied special forces units, each subjected to rigorous testing protocols exceeding industry standards. Tessa arrived 5 days early, her perfectionist nature demanding complete familiarity with the operation. She filmed equipment inspections, interviewed certified jump masters, and toured quality control documentation. The resort staff embraced her presence, understanding the marketing value of her massive social media following. What existed beyond anyone's knowledge was a manufacturing anomaly so rare it occurred in fewer than 1 in 2 million units. Deep within her specific bungee cord's core, a microscopic particle of foreign material had been introduced during production. This imperfection created a stress concentration point that would only manifest under precise conditions. The defective cord had passed every quality control checkpoint. Visual inspections revealed nothing unusual, tensile strength tests showed normal parameters, and advanced analysis failed to detect the flaw. The cord had been in service for 11 months, successfully handling over 400 jumps without indication of compromise. Tessa's birthday morning arrived with perfect alpine conditions. She had positioned multiple cameras at strategic angles, planning to create spectacular content. Pre-jump preparation unfolded with Swiss precision. Tessa was fitted with a premium harness system, her weight calculated precisely, and cord selection made according to strict protocols. Standing at the platform edge, Tessa experienced familiar terror and exhilaration that had defined her career. The breathtaking alpine vista stretched endlessly below, providing perfect backdrop for what she anticipated would be her most viral content ever. The jump commenced flawlessly. Tessa's form was textbook perfect as she launched into the void, cameras capturing pure euphoria during initial free-fall seconds. The resort's monitoring systems tracked her descent, confirming all parameters remained within expected ranges. At maximum cord extension, the microscopic manufacturing defect reached its critical failure threshold. The foreign particle, subjected to dynamic forces it could no longer withstand, propagated instantaneously into complete structural failure. The cord separated with surgical precision, exhibiting no warning signs. Tessa's cameras continued recording as she fell into the alpine lake below. The water impact occurred at a velocity that rendered survival impossible. Her footage provided investigators with crucial evidence, demonstrating that the equipment failure had been completely unforeseeable. The investigation involved materials scientists from multiple countries. Electron microscopy analysis revealed the manufacturing defect that had remained hidden until that fatal moment. The manufacturer immediately recalled the production batch and implemented revolutionary quality control procedures. Her story demonstrated that even exhaustive safety protocols could be defeated by defects so rare that they existed at the limits of material science understanding. It was December 19, 2017. 31-year-old Jared Fulton should have been celebrating his promotion to senior software architect, but instead, he found himself questioning everything about his carefully structured life. The Seattle tech worker had spent the last decade climbing corporate ladders and living what everyone else considered the American dream, yet something fundamental felt missing, a void that no amount of professional success could fill. His therapist had suggested adventure therapy, break the routine, challenge yourself physically. Jared had initially dismissed the idea as new age nonsense, but months of persistent emptiness had worn down his skepticism. Maybe jumping off a bridge in Africa would provide the clarity that meditation apps had failed to deliver. Victoria Falls Bridge represented more than just another tourist attraction. This was the birthplace of modern bungee jumping, where A.J. Hackett had pioneered the sport that now thrilled millions worldwide. The operation boasted decades of experience and international safety certifications. The facility's reputation was built on meticulous attention to detail. Every piece of equipment underwent daily inspection. Every staff member held multiple certifications, and every safety protocol had been refined through years of operational experience. What Jared couldn't have anticipated was the human factor that would transform routine into tragedy. The holiday season had brought unprecedented tourist volume, creating operational pressures that tested even experienced staff. Jump masters were working extended shifts, and the normal rhythm of careful preparation was compressed. Marcus, the equipment technician responsible for rigging preparation, had been working 12-hour days for 2 weeks straight. His girlfriend had broken up with him the previous evening, and he'd been surviving on energy drinks and minimal sleep. Despite his experience, fatigue was affecting his judgment. The morning equipment setup proceeded according to standard checklists, but Marcus's exhausted mind was operating on autopilot. When preparing Jared's rigging system, he failed to properly separate the primary bungee cord from the backup safety line. Both cords were secured to the platform anchor point, but they remained intertwined. Jared arrived at the platform feeling anticipation and terror. The jumpmaster conducted the standard safety briefing and performed the final equipment check, which failed to detect the subtle cord entanglement. Standing at the platform edge, Jared experienced profound clarity about why he'd traveled halfway around the world to jump off a bridge. This wasn't about adrenaline. This was about proving to himself that he could still feel something real. The jump began exactly as Jared had imagined. The initial free fall delivered an overwhelming rush of sensation that cut through years of emotional detachment. For those first precious seconds, he felt completely alive. But as Jared reached the halfway point of his descent, the entangled cords began to tighten around each other under the dynamic forces of his fall. The intertwined configuration created uneven load distribution that caused his body to rotate uncontrollably, transforming the smooth descent into a chaotic spiral that pulled him toward the gorge walls. The first impact occurred at tremendous velocity, with Jared's body striking the granite cliff face in an uncontrolled collision that caused massive trauma. The entangled cords prevented normal energy absorption, instead creating a whipping motion that generated additional impacts. Emergency response teams reached the gorge within minutes, but the uncontrolled collisions with the gorge walls had created injuries incompatible with survival. Investigation revealed how equipment entanglement had transformed routine into catastrophe. These stories are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what can go wrong. Click the next video for more shocking stories that will leave you speechless.